When the canine detects, most people scratch their heads and they go,
Yeah.
my chimney looks great. What do you mean I have a problem in my chimney?
Are there any particular inspections that you've done yourself that have been particularly memorable for whatever reason?
They're all very memorable because we're actually helping people. People are so jazzed and excited about what the canines find. Kind of like people go into it and they're like, maybe our house will be the one that has no defects. And then when the canine goes in, if there are defects, then the owner of the property is like, well, at least it was only 4. I was kind of thinking it was going to be like 15 to 20, but at least it's only 4. And then the canine goes in and does the awesome inspection, and the people are just thrilled to death about the results, and they finally have answers that nobody else could give them. And the cool thing is now they don't have to tear their whole house up looking for this. They also don't have to spend money on a bunch of humans to come in and say, well, I think it's here and I think it's there and it might be there and it might be here. No more of that. The guessing game is over. Now know what you're dealing with.
I've got a turn to here with Tina from Mold Dog Network. Tina is one of the owners, and Mold Dog Network are obviously one of the best mold inspection companies in, I guess, central United States, really, because you guys can find mold with 90% accuracy. So, Tina, I know you're in homes every day doing these inspections. What are the biggest signs that you find, apart from when the dog alerts, that someone may have hidden mold even when you can't see anything?
So one of the biggest signs are the smell. And when you go into a home, we often say that they have kind of a universal odor to them. There's also this really odd thing that we notice is that, and you'll hear the homeowner occupants say, I dusted 2 days ago and I have to dust again because it looks like I've gone a month without dusting. We see a much higher level of particulate buildup in homes that are infested with microbial growth. And so these are some common things. Also, the health. A lot of people will express that they're having major health decline, amnesia, they're having dementia, they're having Parkinson type affects, seizures, bloody noses, headaches, hair falling out. I think I said eczema, autoimmune diseases, testosterone through the floor, hormones are wrong, gut is messed up, they can't eat correctly, their bodies are just all a mess when it comes to digestion. Insomnia is a big thing. And then there's a flip side to insomnia. Some of the affect that we see is people, they just can't wake up. It's almost like they're going comatose. They'll sleep 20 hours a day. I mean, I can't tell you the number of families we've run into where parents have lost jobs and they're struggling. They've gone on welfare because everybody in the house is so sick, but they can't see it. They don't know where it is. And, some of these families have had multiple mitigations done and they're still sick. And the mitigation companies are missing it. Industrial hygienists are missing it. It's because we humans, we just can't see it.
Yeah, but a dog obviously can because it's not relying on its eyesight. What are the most common places that a dog alerts to in a home?
So we see a lot around chimneys. Those are very common failure points in a home around a chimney. Spalling is one of the affects of that. Failure to the chimney caps is another. The flashing around the chimney fails. Chimneys just really in general aren't good. Caleb and I, we cringe every time we see a house with a chimney. I know it's kind of sad. Some pumps, failure from that. A lot of times what we'll see is somebody had a water leak and they thought, yeah, it's not that bad. We're going to dry it out ourselves. And that oftentimes leads to a discovery of mold that they just did not know they had, that just grew inside of a wall or between floors, like the ceiling below and the floor above. They had a leak above and they thought, oh, no big deal. I'll paint the ceiling. We're good to go. And it stays wet inside that chamber and grows mold. And the dogs are like, it's right there.
Yeah, so they can smell it in the ceiling. That's often been one of my questions. Like, does the handler need to pick them up and sort of hold them, or
No.
how does that work?
No. So the canines are very sensitive. Their whole goal, everything that they're trained on, what they wake up in the morning thinking about, what they go to bed at night thinking about is the gold, right? And the gold for them is that scent signature that's given off by the multitude of different mold species. And they're after those scent signature. It's just, that's their total aim. That's all they want. They don't care what a wall looks like. They don't care what the layout of a house looks like. They don't know any of that. None of that matters to them. They don't care what they're sniffing. It could be anything. It can be a car. It could be an airplane. It could be a building. It could be a couch. They don't care. All they want is that scent. And when they get that scent that mold has decided to set up inside of something, man, they are on it. And they love that because that's how they get rewarded.
And just going back to something you said a moment ago about chimneys, something that occurred to me, it's like, why are chimneys such an issue? Have they always been an issue since we've been using them? Or is it because people have things like central heating now, they've got HVAC systems, so they're not actually creating fires in the chimney to actually flush things out? What do you think?
Actually, so the way that it has been explained to us is that chimneys, we build these houses and we're using brick or stone on a chimney stack, but then we don't think about the fact that that needs to be treated with some sort of a repellent because unlike the walls of the house that have the umbrella cap, your roof, the chimney is just kind of sticking up out, right? The wind's hitting it and the rain's getting on it. There's no rooftop really protecting the sides of that stone or brick. Okay. So it's really taking on the elements at a different level than the structure of the actual house is. And so people don't protect it. They don't put a repellent on it to keep the moisture and the humidity from wicking into the brick itself. And then over time, because we light a fire in that chimney and it heats up that channel, right? Well, when do we do that? We do that when it's cold outside. So now we've got
Hmm.
hot in the chamber, and the chamber has got masonry product, and then we've got cold outside, and the two are reacting in that masonry product that's hanging on by hangers to a framed chase that's going out the rooftop of the house, which is being challenged by the wind and everything else. And so that starts to develop hairline fractures in it that start to allow water in. They spall, which is what I'm describing. And
There
you've
you go.
got all sorts of things that go into the flashing, the design of the flashing, how the flashing flows downward down the actual rooftop, away from the top, pulling water away. And then you've got all this caulking that's going on. And sometimes they'll even groove into the masonry and kind of recess that flashing in there. And then they'll try to caulk it. Well, over time with all the elements, you're going to see that caulking starts to wear out, just like a crawl space or an attic. People don't make it a habit of getting on their roof and doing checks on their chimneys on a regular basis. So when these failure points start to occur, you and I are not aware of it because a chimney chase is long, backed inside of a wall, usually on the inside of the house. You've got some sort of masonry product and or build out. You've got, the front of your actual fireplace, the mantle. It's all kind of hidden back in that, okay? And it's kind of this box. And so when the water flows down that, it just keeps on flowing. Unless it's a major, major intrusion of water, you're probably not really going to be aware of it. And that's where the canine comes in and the canine detects. And we've seen where mitigation companies go in after Mold Dog Network and they pull the lovely cabinetry that's on the built-ins on both sides of the fireplace. They pull it off. And on the side and or back of those built-ins, it's full of mold. You start to pull the actual insulation out of the wall chambers and it's full of mold around the chimney. And it's that is very rewarding for Mold Dog Network because when the canine detects, most people scratch their heads and they go,
Yeah.
"My chimney looks great. What do you mean I have a problem in my chimney?"
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess it's a hard pill for a homeowner to swallow when a dog's saying there's a problem here. And they're like, I really don't want there to be a problem there. I like that part. Leave it alone.
Yeah. Most of the people that hire Mold Dog Network, though, they've already gotten to the point where they understand that having mold in the home is not an option. And wherever the canine detects, it just is what it is. The challenge point comes from the perspective of the person, the human, whether that's, an industrial hygienist or the homeowner or realtor, when they're staring at this beautiful chimney and the dog is like, pointing
Yeah,
their nose right at a spot, on the side of the chimney, and they're doing that direct stare at that, and they're putting their nose to it going, it's right here. Does everybody see me? It's right here. And we love that. We're like, yes, you get your toy, you get your food or your little treat, and then we put a pleek on the wall to let the family know that the canine
yeah,
unfortunately detected there. We also see
yeah,
it where sinks, people at the kitchen sink, people will have water intrusions that they're unaware of because the cabinetry hides it. The cabinetry is up off the floor, water flows, it hits the floor, hits the wall behind, it kind of hides back there. So sinks are another place. HVAC systems, oh my goodness. That's another one. We see that HVAC systems, if not put in correctly and if they're not operated and taken care of, can present a real problem. And so if the canine detects on an HVAC system, we know that they have to mitigate that.
yeah. What sort of things in the home that you typically find that can happen make mold more likely to grow? So, I mean, leaks is an obvious one. You've spoken about, failures in the chimney, things like that. You just spoke about HVACs a little bit. Like, what else is there?
Yeah, so we have incoming water. Okay, so supply, any supply points, that's a failure opportunity. We also have outgoing, which is your drain system in the home. Okay. Those are failure opportunities. Aside from that, you have insulative value around the home. And a lot of people think, well, I haven't had a leak in a sink and I haven't had a water heater explode and I haven't had a basement flood. I can't tell you the number of jobs that we've gone on that the canines have detected. And we've discovered, once the mitigation company goes in, we've discovered that what had occurred in the home was that the insulative building materials that were supposed to have been placed on the house, the exterior of the house, were either not done at all, done only in part, meaning maybe they ran out of material and the builder just kept building and just left that out. We've actually seen walls that have been opened up where the building material was completely missing. Like they just didn't put anything there and they just kind of used in one particular house, they used really thin foam, like super thin foam to hold outlets. I mean, it was holding everything. And so, I mean, from the siding to the outlets, it was pretty sad. And the owner said, I mean, everything else was built right in that wall, but it was that one whole section right there was just that little thin foam board. And they said, we never, ever would have known this if it had not been for the dog. Water was coming in there. The sill plates were getting wet. Moisture, humidity was infiltrating the home in that whole wall section right there. Because when it gets real humid outside and you don't have these protective barriers and it gets real cold outside and it's real warm inside, you start having a clashing inside of our wall chambers. We've seen walls opened up that were full of ice because the
Wow.
house wasn't built right. And the dogs key in on that because what happens if the house is built wrong and every single year you're heating the house up and the cold air is flying outside and the wall chambers are filling with ice and then they're thawing out and then they're filling with ice and then they're thawing out, you're growing mold. And the canines go through and they pick up on that. And people are like, I never would have ever thought, never would have known. There would have never been a way for them to know.
Mm. That's incredible that you can actually get ice in a wall cavity because of leaks and things. I hadn't thought of that before. That's I guess that's why remediation companies typically see spikes in kind of springtime, right? Because everything thaws out and then everyone's panicking.
Yep. When water lines are freezing and then cracking and then the springtime everything thaws out and people start using their spigots and everything starts flooding. Here's another really interesting one that we saw. Weather patterns are changing across America. So they're kind of advancing and expanding. Regions of the United States where HVAC, the coolant lines that were coming into houses were insulated, but they were insulated for the geographical area that the house was being built. So the R value of the insulation on the coolant line was X, Y, or Z, depending on which region of the US you were building it. Because, and this has been in the last 2 years or so, Kentucky, where we're based out of, was gravitated into this expanded, what they call tornado alley. It's kind of like this swath of weather that moves, was known to move through like the Oklahoma region. Back in the day, everybody called that tornado alley. Everybody kind of knew that that's where that occurs. Well, Kentucky, unfortunately, in the last couple of years has been brought into that region because that weather pattern has expanded. So what we have seen is that all the houses that were built with the R value on that coolant line are now being challenged every summer because the insulative wrap around that coolant line is not enough to keep the coolant line from sweating. So what happens is that
Mm.
coolant line sweats inside of the box or inside the drywall of the ceiling or the wall that it's brought up into, and it sweats and sweats and sweats. Now, that's not a rush of water. Okay. That's just moisture building up inside of a cavity inside the house. And when we open up
Mm.
those areas of the home, we find all sorts of mold because that coolant line has been sweating and sweating and sweating, and nobody knew it. And the dogs find it.
Yeah, and yeah, I was gonna say that's the dog can notice it, and then you pass it off to the remediation company, and they'll know exactly where to find it. Yeah. So when someone reaches out to you, what sort of things do they tell you on the phone that they've noticed? Because I'm guessing if they can see mold, they're not calling you; they're calling a remediation company.
It's actually both. So we get people who call us and say we have
Okay.
health issues, and our doctor has told us to find a canine to help us detect where the colonies are hiding in the home, where we have a problem. And or sometimes insurance companies, insurance agents. We've got industrial hygienists who are referring us out because the humans are just no match, right? The dogs, they just are just they're stellar. They can beat what a human can do in no time. So when we go to a property or we're talking with somebody on the phone and they say, I'm having health concerns, or my doctor said this, or I had an industrial hygienist come out and, they're really shaking their head because they can't find it. They suggested we call you. We need the dogs. And they really, at that point that they're calling us, it's already decided upon because they know the power of the dog at that point. Somebody has educated them on the power of the dog.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and you know, m- mold in the functional medicine space is really, really big. Even in the conventional medicine space, it's getting bigger and bigger every year. People are really starting to wake up to the health impacts of it. But I'm just thinking, industrial hygienists, they're in the space every day looking for mold. Why is it that they miss it? Because surely they know what to look for. Why is it so difficult to find sometimes?
Well, because humidity and water, the things that give mold the breeding ground or the idea that it wants to make your home its home, are not biased, and they're not consistently constant in any one given place. And humans go into these properties with experience, textbook training, right? Field training, and they go in with tools. They go in to do swab testing, tape lifting, air capture, thermal cameras. They're using devices to try to make up for the God-given device that a canine owns, right? We humans were not given that gift. So we have to use all these little devices. And then from those devices, we're trying to make heads or tails out of whether or not there's a problem and where the problem is. And anytime somebody's going to make an investment into their home or property to get rid of a problem like mold or mycotoxins, they want to make sure that they're getting the home thoroughly inspected so that when the mitigation is done, they have a much higher chance of having wiped out the majority, if not all, of the mold problem in that structure. Nobody wants to go back and do this 2, 3, 4, 5 times, right? So bringing the canine in, the canine is like, yeah, baby, let's go. I know where this stuff is. I can smell it. Now, we've had homes. We've had homes that the dog's gone into and there's no detect. And we just look at those families and we're like, keep doing what you're doing. You're doing something right. There's been no detect. We've
Yeah.
had the canines go into homes. We had one particular, the canine detected on a Roomba. The kind of Roomba that puts
Mhm.
down the moisture and then sucks it back in. Nobody thought to even maybe
Mhm.
clean that out or change that out, and all sorts of colonies inside
Yeah.
of the Roomba. So I think for families that are on crawl spaces, that's a big deal because those are very often problematic. And a lot of times people will ask us about, attics because you can't really see what's going on in an attic. The canine, if
Mhm.
the canine gets a indicator, the scent signature, the canine is going to detect on that attic. And then from there, we notify
Mhm.
the family. The attic has an issue. There's something going on in there. Now, our canines are very expensive. They are also very dear to us. So we're not going to put our canines in danger. Okay. We're not going to release them into your attic. We will go to the attic
Mm.
entrance point, let the canine
Yeah.
tell us what they're getting from that entry point. And then we do
Mhm.
the inspection from down below that attic. And if the scent signature is being given off, and the scent signature typically will, the way that a house breathes and rotates the air, if there's an issue going on up in that attic and that canine picks up on it, now we've got two indicators that that attic is having a major issue. And if an attic has an issue, you're really going to treat the entire attic because attics are subject to the elements. Humidity is coming and going out of attics, right? Because it's moving air in and out. And so if it doesn't have proper air flow and you've got a mold colony in one area, you probably have a mold infestation overall in that entire attic area. You're going to want to treat that whole attic.
Yeah. So, final question for you, I guess. Are there any particular inspections that you've done yourself that have been particularly memorable for whatever reason?
They're all very memorable because we're actually helping people, and people are so jazzed and excited about what the canines find. It's kind of like people go into it and they're like, maybe our house will be the one that has no defects. And then when the canine goes in, if there are defects, then the canine, the owner of the property is like, well, at least it was only four. I was kind of thinking it was going to be like 15 to 20, but at least it's only four. So it's kind
Yeah.
of a speculation kind of thing, where they're speculating, the homeowner, property owner speculating and kind of betting on themselves of what the results are going to be. And then the canine goes in and does the awesome inspection, and the people are just thrilled to death about the results, and they finally have answers that nobody else could give them. And the cool thing is now they don't have to tear their whole house up looking for this. They also don't have to spend money on a bunch
Yeah.
of humans to come in and say, well, I think it's here and I think it's there and it might be there and it might be here. No more of that. The guessing game is over. You now know what you're dealing with. Memorable, I don't really have any
Yeah.
particular one that stands out. Overwhelming, we had one where the canine detected on floors, walls, and ceiling, and the entire
Mhm.
family was super sick. That one was really kind of jaw dropping for us because as the mitigation company opened up the house, it legit was engulfed. I mean, the whole house was engulfed. I mean, it was just all the places that the canine had detected, every one of those rooms, where it was floor, ceiling, and wall, each one of those chambers was full of mold, and it was visible mold. So, yeah.
Mm. Yeah, it's really interesting because if I'm a homeowner, I don't know whether and I'm feeling sick, I don't know whether I want the dog to detect everywhere or the dog to detect as few times as possible. And it's just this one small issue that's making me sick because if I'm really sick, I kind of want a reason for that. And that's why I've come to hire a canine,
Well,
I
one
guess.
critical thing to remember is that just
Yeah.
because you have, let's say the canine detects on one primary place, right? They have one detect. That one location can make an entire house sick, and it can make the people in it sick. And I also think that that's an underestimated, maybe a myth or an idea that people have, that if it's just this one like area of the house, right? It's under the garden tub. Yeah, it's not a big deal. It can be
Yeah.
huge. That can be a huge deal. And so just one detect versus 20 detects, either way you go, you do not want to have the mold making your home its home.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time. That's been super interesting. Yeah, you guys do great work. Why don't you just do a quick rundown of the areas that you actually serve
Okay,
right now?
so we are in Lexington, Kentucky, and all of the surrounding Kentucky areas. We'll travel. People hire us from Ohio, Indiana, Tennessee. I mean, we've had people call us from Oklahoma. Got a call from Canada last week. So if people are willing to pay the travel costs, which are not bad at all, if they're willing to pay the travel costs, then our team will travel to get to them to help them know what's going on in the home, give them the answers. The cool thing about Mold Dog Network is you're going to know if you have a problem and you're going to know where the problem hides. And you're going to know, you're going to have a report that tells you that so that you can get a game plan to mitigate that. And you're going to have all of that the same day, which is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, and you don't have to spend 6 weeks doing exploratory demo to find to maybe find
Yeah.
something.
And the cost is really very, very competitive. I mean, when you look at hiring a human to come in with all those great tools that we talked about, and they're trying to, use their experience and their education to try to delineate whether or not there's a problem in a given area of the home, the cost of that, I mean, they start out, I think the lowest I've ever heard is around $500 is the base point, and then you're paying hundreds of dollars per area that they do a test with one of their tools, tape sample, swab sample, air capture. You're paying for all of that. So an industrial hygienist, by the end, you're talking thousands of dollars. When Mold Dog Network comes in, it's by the square footage of the property, and it's always been very, very competitive to what you're going to find with industrial hygienists. And most often, we're finding that it's less expensive to get much more accurate answers and get answers that very same day. It's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, that's great. I'd hire one if I had any issues. I know you guys train the dogs to a massive degree as well, which is probably why you're so
Yeah.
accurate. But yeah, thank you again so much for your time, and
Thank
we'll
you.
speak again soon.